Well, yes, indeed, we've seen that the Southern governors have met, but let me quickly get your views on this. Lots of people seeing so much reactions about the reinstatement and now the order for him to be disengaged. Speaking about Abdul Rashid Maina, how did you react to this as it unfolds? What are your impressions?
The truth of the matter is that this is inexplicable. You can't find any reasonable answers to this kind of development. I mean, a few things have happened in the past that gave the impression that government was kind of disconnected, that government functionaries were not interfacing properly. And but this particular minor case is the worst case scenario, if you ask me, in any government, a federal government at that. I mean, we have seen where the president sent somebody's name to the Senate, and on the basis of a report by another arm of government, another organization of government, the Senate says, well, the DSS has said that you are unqualified for this position. And that is still in the cooler. But this is, for me, a very sad day, because I don't know how the EFCC could have declared somebody wanted, how the person could have escaped from the country, and how everybody is quite aware of the scandal that visited that particular matter. And to say that the person is back, reinstated, and promoted, is somebody must pay for this.
Well, what do you think is the motive behind his reinstatement?
You know, there are too many hidden secrets in this present administration. People say he made a lump sum donation to the campaigns of the president in 2015. People say that he's an untouchable. I mean, from the part of the country that he comes, you could never do wrong. But I beg to disagree. How in our democratic system could this happen? I mean, I'm not even listening to what the PDP is saying. This is something that is outlandish, outrageous. This is something that ought to make even the most hardened cynics recoil and say, how?
So now, is it more about this reinstatement, or is it more about the fraud allegations?
It's everything about morality, about law, about effectiveness, about governance. It's all wrapped up. I mean, the next thing we probably will hear is that a thief has sneaked into the villa and stolen the president. But with this, that day is not far away.
It does seem to suggest that the president didn't know about this, because, I mean, he's the one who said that, okay, hold on, let him leave that office for now. EFCC, do your job. The president doesn't seem to be in the know of this particular case.
It's not just this particular case, my dear friend. He doesn't appear to be in the know of a lot of things. Look at the appointment of the deputy governor of the CBN the other day. That's just been, it's like it's been closed up. But there are issues. You can't just promote somebody same day from the position of a general manager or whatever to executive director just to qualify that person to become the deputy governor of the central bank. We can do better than this, for goodness sake. Now the point is, how will the president not be aware that a scandalous case like Mainar's has been resolved in Mainar's favor?
What if they didn't brief him? Because, I mean, we know that...
That even makes it more scandalous.
Yeah, because there's so many things that he will trust his lieutenants to handle.
Chamberlain, let's take your organization, for instance. Yeah. A driver, put it like a driver, as low as a driver, has stolen a vehicle. He's caught by the police and dismissed by this organization. And then, in a couple of months, he's reinstated and promoted head of the drivers division. This is akin to what has happened.
But that wide gulf.
No, but I'm just saying to you,
and then the country.
Yeah, you know, with incidents like this, you begin to wonder, how does the government work?
But I get your point, though. But the thing is, I mean, it's possible that the president may not have been aware.
I'm not saying categorically that he was aware, but I'm saying that the fact that it didn't come to his table makes it more scandalous.
But whose handiwork do you see in this? Like, for instance, there are lots of insinuations that there are cabals, they call them groups, and then they say there are a lot of things that are shrouded in secrecy. Whose hand do you see in this?
There are two ways to look at this particular matter. The media is saying Mena is a close associate of the Internal Affairs Minister, who was the first person to wash his hands of this matter, to say promotions, demotions, all kinds of disciplinary measures are taken by the Civil Service Commission, Federal Civil Service Commission. Fine. And therefore, he obviously pushed the buck to the head of service table. She immediately reacted and issued a statement. Now, for me, the way she stated her case, there is no ambiguity that this recommendation came from the office of the minister based on a report of a committee that was set up by this same minister. So why are we prevaricating? Why do we always do this to ourselves? Why do we always like to portray this country as a nation of incompetent people, as a nation of people who have lost common sense? It's not a question of, is this matter difficult to resolve? If you ask me, somebody has been reinstated. A committee suggested or recommended for his reinstatement. So who then recommended for his promotion? I mean, this is the pit.
Well, this is a matter that is going to be on for a while. But speaking about whether or not this matter is difficult to resolve, let's look at that with respect to the Southern Governors Forum. They met after several years. They, in their communique, are speaking about devolution of power, true federalism, of course, one indivisible Nigeria. Is it difficult to resolve or to say, get everyone to agree on true federalism or devolution of powers?
Thank you. This is the happier side of the morning.
Oh, how so?
No, it is so because we hear always that northern governors are meeting. We hear always that the northern governors have met with Arewa Consultative Forum, Northern Elders Forum. I dare say that the frequency of these meetings has created the impression that they know what they are doing over there. Here,
that's with respect to politics.
With respect to governance.
Governance.
Right. Because you see, governance comes from policy formulation, discussions, and implementation. You don't just jump up and throw out a policy statement without deliberations. But back here in the South, the kind of politics our governors have played has been one of total embarrassment, where they take partisan political positions into governance. And therefore, what the result was obvious, a disconnect between the governors and the people. If you ask me, ask all the 17 governors or their representatives who were present there yesterday, how many of them traveled to Lagos by road to really know about the state of this so-called Enugu-Port Harcourt highway or Benin-Ore, Ijebu-Ode road. How many of them came by road?
But how does this singular meeting point to either a willingness to correct all this?
No, it's not. You won't take it as a wholesale willingness, but right. it is beginning to lead towards a convergence. It is beginning to create the impression of a consonance rather than dissonance. Hitherto, all of them, it was like, to your tents, we have won elections. Every governor was fortifying his territory, and I mean, this is, even if you take it at the zonal level, it is not only until recently that the governors, I mean, as recently as 2-3 years ago perhaps, that the governors of the Southwest started to come together on the basis of economic integration for the region. Politics had torn all of them apart.
But you heard the communique that was read by His Excellency Akinwumi Ambode, the governor of Lagos State. Do you see anything new in their approach to what they want to achieve?
I see a lot of things new in their approach. First, they are collectively giving voice to the need for devolution of powers and to all other issues of restructuring that has become the issue of the day.
That didn't pass when the senators and the House of Reps members...
That's what I'm saying. The only thing missing from yesterday's meeting is a mention of how the governors were going to work with their various legislative houses to ensure, and I think it was mentioned, to ensure that when the amendments to the Constitution finally arrives in the State Houses of Assembly, they will work in concert to ensure that the interests of the South is protected in the various amendments that will be provided. But the important thing to note here is that I do want to commend Governor Ambode. I mean, Lagos State is actually the state to beat. Lagos State is not just the 4th or 5th largest economy in Africa. It shows in the way things happen here. First, you recall that the first Southern Governors meeting held under Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, and the next one held sometime in 2015 or thereabout, I'm not too sure, but this is the 3rd meeting that has held. There is the need for more interfacing. Hunger is common to all the states. There is no PDP hunger, APC hunger, or ABGA hunger. Hunger is hunger.
But you know, if we look at what they want to achieve, the Southern governors, and then you put it side by side, the Dawn agenda, the development agenda of Western Nigeria, I think that's the Dawn agenda.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's just a replication of what Dawn is and making it a bigger picture to take the whole of the southern part of the country? But what has Dawn achieved itself?
Well, you may not begin to look and count the achievements right now, but the fact that there is a Dawn agenda, it means that they will be discussing, that they will be exploiting, and that over time the benefits might begin to show. And I think that it is the same thing for the South. It's actually a tragedy that our governors, not only their political differences, personal political differences, are in the public domain. One governor won't talk to the other governor on account of some very flimsy and untenable kinds of stories.
Is that what happened? Because one of the governors was not there.
Well, I actually hoped that he would come, the governor of Cross River. I had hoped that he would come, but he has a way of doing his own thing. And this is what I'm talking about. You know, maybe the next meeting, all of them will be present, not just represented by their deputies. I mean, one can excuse the governor of Anambra State. People are hot on his heels trying to take his position, and therefore, if he moved out of the state yesterday, nobody knows what kinds of crossovers you will see. But in all seriousness, this is a positive development for southern Nigeria.
But what about, doesn't it have a tendency of making it look like us and them?
No, it could never. If me and you and a group of people who live in a small community sit down together to discuss our problems and how to resolve them and how to begin to satisfy the yearnings of our people, it only means that that particular territory that we are talking about will be better. And if it is better, it's reflective for the rest of the country.
So it's not dichotomous?
It's not dichotomous, not in any way. For me, it is not. I mean, I just told you that northern governors meet regularly. Not just the governors, with their northern elders, with Arewa Consultative Forum, with their economic whatever. And how could that become dichotomous?
But don't you feel there will be a degree of unease?
No, my brother. The truth is, when in fact, it reduces national tension for all I care. Because it is only when people from these same states see their governors meeting regularly that they themselves can feel quite comfortable living in the other states or having to do businesses across the south.
Because this is tending towards 2019. Now, you know, the elections are here, and one of the biggest concerns during elections is that of violence, electoral violence and malpractices. Do you foresee, say for instance, now with the southern governors, and that happens to be very predominant in the southern part of the country, do you see, for instance, with this meeting of the southern governors, that will be minimized and there will be that level of understanding that galvanizes and harmonizes the people even more?
I think this meeting underscores the need for our leaders to keep talking, for our leaders to keep exploring and exploiting ways to make life better. Let me tell you an example. Last week, you know, the PDP is preparing for a chairmanship election, a national convention.
Yeah.
Last week, the contestants for the chairmanship position were called to a meeting. 3 of them, Dr. Dokpesi, Otumba Gbenga Daniel, and Professor Adeniro, came to the meeting, and all their supporters or their campaign operatives were there at the meeting. The truth is, everybody left that hall with tension very, very lowered. With all people who used to see themselves as enemies. Oh, you are in the other camp, I'm in this camp, you are in the other camp. The contestants got together and said, 3 of us are very capable. Any of us.
Does this breach party lines?
What happened in Abuja?
No,
this
sudden thing. Yes.
This is what I'm telling you. That yesterday, it wasn't whether you were a PDP governor, ABGA governor, or an APC governor. Issues that were discussed were actually across party lines.
But how do you see this playing out? Because I think it was a couple of days ago when there were reports credited to the Senate President. I think he was saying something as to why the effort to revisit devolution of power may fail. So how do you see this playing out if it gets to the National Assembly again in the light of this meeting?
This kind of meeting can put a lie to the claim of the Senate President. Because if all the states and their governors and their senators and their House of Reps members have agreed to issues, then it is a little easier for everybody to be looking in the same direction. It is quite easier for, in point of fact, senators from the south and from the north to sit together and begin to look at the future of Nigeria.
But what about putting in question the regional composition of the National Assembly? How will that affect the dynamics?
You see, I have always said that Nigeria, our political setup is highly dislocated. I mean, a situation where you have a preponderance of representatives coming from one side of the country, and but you see, I am saying to you that once elected into the House, you should stop seeing yourself as coming from the north, south, west, or wherever. You should look at the quality of legislation. You should look at national interest. Those who wrote the American Constitution, they didn't write it for themselves, for their convenience. They wrote it for several years ahead. Why can't we do that if we are actually practicing a democracy that we have fashioned after America?
You know, how much of what the Nigerian people want, or the electorate want, how much of it does this kind of meeting take into consideration?
It's not, we won't get there in one day. But true, this kind of meetings go down where? Better with the people than with the governors.
Is it likely going to douse the mutual, maybe distrust?
I already said that. I already said
among
that.
the people, not just the...
I already said that. That's why I gave you the example of the PDP contestants. Once they left the room and each of them had addressed the gathering, we don't want any fight. We must not lose focus of where we are going. It's only one person who can become national chairman, not two people, not three people. Only one person must win in a race. If you run behind the person in your front, you will come second. If you run faster, you will come first. And this do or die thing, this winner takes all mentality.
What about the actuality of that winner takes all? Shouldn't we do something about correcting it? Because many say that's what it is.
We can correct it if we have level playing fields. If elections are free and fair. Chamberlain, me and you go and contest an election, right? And I'm declared winner, and you immediately get up and hug me. Who is going to be fighting on the street? Who would they be fighting for? Who would they claim they are fighting for? They love you better than yourself? That's the point.
Brilliant.
All right, that's a fantastic place to just anchor this morning. Always a pleasure having Mr. IDE EGUABOR, a journalist, a political analyst, and publisher of the now arrested National Interest newspaper. He was also the former spokesperson of the South People's Assembly. Thank you for coming on this morning.
My pleasure, always.
All right, then we'll be back in a moment.